Greetings, fellow RotoBallers. It is the Checkdown. It is Week 9. Welcome back. My name is Joey Christopoulos with my co-host, Tutty Guy Dave Rispoli. This is the show that gives you our favorite quarterback, tight end, starts, sits for Week 9. Bye weeks this week, Washington football team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Detroit Lions, and the Seattle Seahawks. Dave, man, welcome back to the show. How was your Halloween? How are you doing?
Joey, last week was pretty crazy. Halloween brought, I would say, mostly tricks, not many of the treats for us in fantasy football. An absolutely wild week. We are here to repair things, Joey. We are here to put the Band-Aids on the wounds. Tell the good people why last week was such a wild week in fantasy.
Dave, you know what? I don't know about you. I thought it was actually a pretty normal week. I mean, Trevor Siemian beat Tom Brady. Mike White tossed for 405 yards. He beat the Bengals. Cooper Rush crushed. Geno Smith dominated. Crispin Glover punched in 3 touchdowns. Derrick Henry's out for the year. Packers have no wide receivers, and the Lions still suck. Only one of those was a lie, Dave. Did I miss anything?
You did. You happened to miss that we do tight ends, and 5 of the top 12 tight ends in PPR were rostered in 0% of Yahoo leagues, Joey. That's how fun last week was. The ghouls were out, Joey, but guess what? I'm looking at the schedule this week, and I have a feeling week 9 is retribution. It's going to have all the treats. Am I right?
Yeah, no, I think the portal to hell has closed,
Thank
and
God.
I think now we can get back to planet Earth. So everyone, if you go to the bottom right now, bring your comments, bring your questions. You guys have been so amazing about that every single week. Not just about coming back and watching the video, but just asking your questions about not even quarterbacks and tight ends, anything in your league, because we're happy to do that and try and help you win your league this week. So let's dive into it, Dave. Week 9, quarterback start. My first quarterback start of the week is Tua versus the Houston Texans. Look, we've been stalking the Houston Texans for quite some time. They got just a bad defense. And as long as Tua doesn't play the Bills, I kind of like his numbers this season. They haven't been that bad. If you look at the Texans, they're allowing the ninth most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They've allowed 8 touchdown passes the last 3 weeks. 7 different quarterbacks have at least 17 fantasy points against them this year, and they've allowed 15 passing touchdowns, and my favorite stat, 4 rushing touchdowns right now, so Tua can get it done with his legs. It's a green light matchup for me, especially for the tight ends and running backs against the Texans, which means, hey, baby, Gesicki, lock it up. Maybe a Myles Gaskin sighting. You know, I like Tua this week a whole lot against the Texans. It's a start.
I love the call, Joe. Tua is my favorite kind of streaming quarterback because it's so clear the kind of quarterback he is. He's bad against good teams and good against bad teams. It's clear cut, baby. That's what I like in fantasy football. So if you have Brady and you need somebody to plug up the hole, Tua is a great quarterback this week. Or
it's the Mitch Trubisky promise.
It sure is.
Good against the bad. Good against the bad.
Absolutely. And this next quarterback has actually been mostly good, as consistent as Joe Burrow, which is very surprising. Derek Carr is my start this week against the New York Giants. He's thrown at least 2 tutties in every game but one. Happened to be versus our Bears. Not mad about it. He is the sneaky fantasy QB 11 heading into his bye last week. I just love players coming off their bye. Now, we're recording this on Tuesday. News broke this morning. We do not know what's going on with the Henry Ruggs situation. That is not our bag. What we do is fantasy football, so I can tell you most likely he will not be playing this week. I still like Derek Carr because the last time we saw him, he was without his favorite weapon, Darren Waller, and hello, Foster Moreau. Still getting it done. Still Brian Edwards is there. And Joey, what if I were to tell you that there's only 6 players who have had 20% of their team's target share in every game they've played this year? A lot of names you've heard of, right?
I would tell you that he's a perfect start for Tom Brady this week, who's on a bye.
One of those names is Hunter Renfrow. Renfrow is getting 20%
that guy's
of his
in
team
succession, though, right? That guy's in succession.
that's you're thinking of Tom Wamsgams, okay? That's the other guy. That's the other guy. Hunter Renfrow, baby. So doesn't matter if Henry Ruggs is in or out. I still like Derek Carr versus the Giants. He's a great streaming option. And we don't know what's going on with the health of Kyler Murray. Maybe he ends up sitting. So Brady, Murray, we're saying Tua, Carr. But who do we not like this week, Joey?
Yeah, who do we not like? I mean, let's bring up Danny Dimes versus the Las Vegas Raiders. On the other side of that very field, we like the matchup for the Raiders. We don't like it so much for the Giants. Here's the thing about Danny Dimes this year. You know, you think he's been able to maybe get it done with his legs a little bit. He's only passed for multiple touchdowns, only twice. One of those came last night, Monday night, against the Chiefs. He's 3 games this season with 0 touchdowns in a game. The Raiders are allowing the 12th fewest fantasy points. This is just a bad matchup. The Giants can't really seem to get healthy with Saquon being in and out of the lineup. Kadarius Toney returned to the lineup, left for long stretches of that Monday night game, which looked like a wrist, and then didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, Evan Ingram, who we're going to get to a little bit later, caught a late touchdown, but he's not really a factor. I don't like this right now. I know it's a bye week. You got to fill some guys in. Sometimes you think you can get something out of Danny Dimes. He got you a pretty decent number against a really bad Chiefs secondary last night. I just don't really see it for the Raiders this week. He's a sit for me.
Yeah, the Giants are absolutely decimated. It's like all of their wide receivers are questionable. Saquon, we still don't know if he's going to play or not. This is just so iffy. And even if they all end up playing like we saw this last game, they could be out by halftime. So I love the call, Joe. He's absolutely a sit for me as well. My sit this week, let's go right back to him. Still ice cold. Matty Ice versus New Orleans. New Orleans giving up the second fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks not named Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And dating back to last year, 2 games against them. Obviously, they're in the same division. He only threw for 1 tutty in both of those games. Total. Okay. 1 game was 0 tutties.
Combined.
He just lost his number 1 wide receiver with Calvin Ridley. We don't know what's going on with him, but we can pretty much guarantee he will not be playing this Sunday. And can you really count on Cordell Patterson breaking 6 tackles and diving in the end zone every game? Yes. Yes, you can. Just once though. I just think the Falcons are a mess right now, Joe. They're another team, much like the Giants, that I don't want any part of in fantasy if I can prevent it. So I'm saying stay away from Matty Ice.
They're so hard to root for, Dave. Like, even in confidence pools week to week, maybe this is the week the Falcons win. No, it's just always just a huge stay away. You're dead right on how Matt Ryan played against the Saints last year. He only completed 50% of his passes in those 2 games. Saints got 11 interceptions already this season. This just kind of seems like the Saints get up a little bit early. No matter who's playing quarterback, Matty Ice has to throw it late, maybe some interceptions. Maybe some garbage yards. I'm just not seeing touchdowns. I like it for a sit too as well. Dave, it's time, man. Let's jump on over to our tight end start sits of this week. Who's your favorite start for tight ends in week 9?
Well, first off, I got to just give us a little pat on the back. We've been really good about our tight end sit starts. We had some good calls last week, including our sits. This week, my start of the week is Dallas Goedert versus the Chargers. Now, I know what you're thinking. Chargers have a good defense. They are very good versus opposing wide receivers, but they're actually terrible against opposing tight ends. Mm-hmm. And since Zach Ertz has had his departure from Philly, Dallas Goedert has had 5 and 7 targets in each of his last 2 games and 70 yards in each of those games. He's like the second passing option, if not the first passing option in Jalen Hurts' eyes. So I love him this week versus the Chargers.
Yeah, we're going to be trailing the Chargers D with tight ends for a little while here. They've given up 4 touchdowns of their last 5 games. It didn't happen last week against the Patriots with Hunter Henry. We wanted it, didn't get it, but still, Patriots did whatever they wanted against that defense that is struggling right now. And you nailed it with Dallas Goedert, 12 targets last 2 weeks. Third most to tight ends. I mean, lock it up, match it in. I think that's the best way for the Eagles to move the ball. My next start of the week, we talked about him before. He's back after a couple of weeks. Tyler Conklin.
The old conch shell.
Versus the Ravens. This is a green light matchup versus a guy that slowly over the last 2 weeks has been back into the offensive mix with the Vikings. The Ravens giving up the second most fantasy points to tight ends. 6 touchdowns to tight ends this season. That's a pretty good start. 3 20-plus fantasy games at 3 different tight ends. And Conklin, last 2 weeks, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 64 yards the last 2 games. The tight end position against the Ravens averages 7.7 targets against the Ravens defense this season. Look, I'm not saying crazy numbers, but I'm saying this is a great floor start for Tyler Conklin right here, especially if you're looking on the waiver wire to, I don't know, TJ Hawkinson's going to be on the shelf. You're going to have to kind of look around at some different areas there. I think you could do a pretty nice number with Tyler Conklin. 6 to 10 is a good expectation. Can he get you 10 to 14? Maybe, but again, it's a bye week. This is a kind of a flyer play. I like him as a start.
Love the call, Joe. I'm going to go ahead and give you my first tight end sit. We talked about the quarterback. I don't like any of the skill position players. And this is a guy coming off a touchdown. I know, a tutty. I love tutties, but I don't trust him. Evan Ingram. He was an afterthought, Joey. If you're looking at just his fantasy score, you're going, yeah, he had an okay game, maybe 8 fantasy points. But he did that all in the second half. He was catchless going into halftime, Joey. He was an absolute afterthought. Daniel Jones is looking Kyle Rudolph's way more often than Evan Ingram. He only had 15 yards. So if he didn't fall in the end zone, it would have been a horrible fantasy day. I'd much rather you drop Evan Ingram at this point. Look for a Pat Freiermuth or Tyler Conklin. I'm just not starting him anytime soon.
Him and OJ Howard, for me, are just two guys that I can't wrap my head around. When you watch them actually in the game, they look talented, they look fast, but then all of a sudden injuries crop up. They can't stay on the field, specific with Evan Ingram's case. And then when he is finally healthy, they don't really get him the ball. And you're going to look at that box score and you'll say, hey, touchdown. It came so late in that game. It's just really hard to say, is that really going to lead to success moving forward? I'm right there with you. My next sit as well is the Browns tight ends, both of them, versus the Bengals. You know, Joku, after that 149-yard explosion, what was it, about a month ago? His last 3 games, 63 yards combined. Not good. I mean, Austin Hooper's been non-existent. The Bengals are allowing the 9th fewest. Baker Mayfield's left, his labrum's all banged up. They don't really have anything going there. I think their best shot at winning that game is probably Nick Chubb and more of Nick Chubb. And, against the Bengals, only one tight end has actually eclipsed more than 10 points against the Bengals all season long, and it was 11.4. So that's your ceiling right there, all right? So just you're kind of leaning in. You're a giant in the Keebler Elf's house trying to get fantasy value out of the Browns tight ends versus the Bengals. Both of them are sits for me. I don't like it. Go look somewhere else is my opinion.
Yeah, I'm getting weird vibes from Cleveland. With all the trade talk with OBJ, obviously it didn't happen. OBJ's dad is tweeting about how Baker hates his son and not passing him the ball. Just like weird vibes. I don't think anybody in that passing game can be started right now in fantasy. Certainly not their tight ends, Joe. Love the call. And guess what? That's it. We did it. Week 9.
My final thought on the Browns, Dave, is the Browns season to you kind of like, you remember when you were growing up and you got invited to like one of your first big sleepovers and it was going to be like 10 dudes coming over to sleep over and everyone talked about it and excited for it. And hey, this Browns season / this sleepover is going to be the greatest sleepover of all time. And then someone gets over there and maybe like poops their pants or like cuts a fart or vomits or something. And the whole thing kind of turns and you end up kind of going home and your parents pick you up by midnight. That's kind of where the Browns season is going right now. That ever happened to you?
Joe, do you want to talk about something?
No.
You know what I compare it to?
I want to talk about pooping in my sleeping bag.
I would call it I would compare it to just the NFL trade deadline. Every year overhyped. Every year you're excited. Who's going to go? Oh, Allen Robinson to the Chiefs. Odell Beckham to the Bears. Everything's Melvin Gordon to the Titans. No, none of it happens. It's all just a couple defensive ends and nothing we care about in fantasy football. So
I woke up saying to myself, where will Darius Slayton go? Where will he end up? But yeah,
probably Trader Joe's if you're keeping track in 2 years.
This is week 9, the check down. My name is Joey Christopoulos at Joey Sports Guy, Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you guys give me a follow because I'm always posting RotoBaller content. Dave Rispoli at It Huddy Guy. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Quarterback, tight end. Starts, sits, week 9. Drop your comments and your questions below. Please like this video. Please tell your friends. We're here to help you win your fantasy leagues. So drop those comments and questions below because we answer them. That's what we do. That's what we're all about. That's what we like. So keep it coming. Thank you so much for checking out this video. We'll see you next week. Be well. Go win that league and don't poop in your sleeping bag. A PS.
Joey.
I approve this message.